All right, so welcome to the webinar, Building Your Startup Tech Team, hosted by the Startup Factory and me, Aleksa Vukotic. Just a few things about us. My name is Aleksa, like the Amazon thing, easy to remember. I'm a CTO at the company called the Startup Factory.tech. Our tagline is we build tech companies. We work with early stage founders who are looking to build, launch tech products, coming as early investors, tech partners, almost like a tech founder to help get that MVP off the ground and launch it together. My background is technology, as would be expected, and I wrote a couple of books you can find ironically on Amazon, which are shown here, but also I will co-authored a book with my colleagues here, the Startup Factory, called From the Factory Floor, which talks about the startup journey specifically for tech founders and kind of everything they need to navigate once they start going on that journey. As a CTO at the Startup Factory, we have incubated quite a few startups, some of them quite successful, and all of these have started very small with a founding team, 1 or 2 people, where we join as tech partners, build a bit of tech, but then also build a team. And that is why I'm talking to you about the building of the tech team, because I have done this a number of times over the last 5-6 years. There's some examples of the companies I have been working with, be it startup that the Startup Factory work with, or as a fractional or support CTO looking to build teams. So that's kind of my expertise and why I can hopefully share some insights with you today about this. So I'm going to present for about probably half an hour, going through some of my experiences and things that might be important, but there will be time at the end to ask any specific questions, and I'll leave my contact details as well, so we can always stay in touch after this webinar. Okay, so why are we talking about tech, and why is it building tech teams such a hot topic? I think technology has been in the last 20-30 years at the center of everything that's been happening in business. Every business is basically a tech business, or has become a tech business, be it a tech focused business or tech enabled business, however you want to call it. Technology is big part of that. Obviously now we hear a lot of AI, so maybe we're going to be telling the same story about AI in a year or two. But technology is key to a lot of things we do and all our lives, really. And that's why a lot of businesses that are started especially are looking at technology, how that can break into new markets or make existing processes more efficient, or create completely new markets and products and services that we never kind of dreamt of before. But it also make things a bit more difficult, because starting a business is not just about, okay, let's find my customers and figure out what I need to do. It's also understanding how the technology can help me do that. Technology is very fast moving. It changes massively. And one of the things I learned in the last 20 years in technology, I kept learning continuously. If I remember what I've kind of got taught in my, A-levels and university degrees around computer science, I probably had to go through all of that every year since, and the technology kind of moves in cycles as well. The tech stacks, the architectures, the big step into cloud, now AI, continuously evolve and learning. And as a founder, be it technical or non-technical, doesn't really matter. If you're looking into a tech business, you have to kind of be able to understand that, and that's not an easy place to get into straight away. So it is tricky sometimes to navigate that landscape, and also it is expensive. I think this is mainly targeted at founders of early stage startups or maybe scale ups, and you will probably know this. But because the ubiquity of the technology currently, the demand for those skills is just huge. Everybody competes for the best tech talent. We will know the market rates and salaries have gone through the roof, and what that means for startups, it is tricky. So it's not perhaps realistic to look at those superstar leading developers to build your next product. So we can figure out, like all startups and early companies do, let's find some pragmatic way to get things off the ground in a way that will help us now, but also in the long run, but also that fits our budgets and also our vision, mission, and everything else we do. This is a big part of what we do at the Startup Factory as well, trying to kind of almost like a bit demystify, also help navigate that process, because we kind of sit in that kind of middle. We are tech experts, and I wrote a few books and run big teams, and kind of to that's what I like to do, really. But at the same time, we have a big exposure to the startup ecosystem, what investors want to see, what customers want to see, how to prioritize efficiently, and that's kind of all the little decisions you need to make along the way, how you in the end get to a company and business that's self-sufficient and has this amazing team that runs it and kind of moves it forward. But you have to start from somewhere. So the topic of today is building of the tech teams. So how I kind of like to look at things when you look at building a team. Building a team means, just having the right people around you to do the things that you might not be able to do yourself, but also adds a bit of responsibility, because team is not just, a group of friends trying to do something together. If you hire someone, there's a responsibility of obviously salaries and kind of paying the wages, but also taking care of the career and making sure that people can kind of grow alongside your business as well. But I look at this from a startup perspective. It's kind of the pivot point is the product market fit. And that's basically when you have a product that you can sell, and there are customers out there, they're just waiting for you to kind of get them, really. And there is a different approach, in my view, to building a tech team before and after that point that you should, or we should, take into account. Before product market fit, as a founder, you have spotted the problem. You've seen something based on your experience, your expertise, domain knowledge. What is it that no one addresses at the moment? I think this is the kind of most important thing, I guess, in a startup, spotting the problem, because solutions will come. You can also test solutions, but knowing that there is a problem means that someone will actually be willing to pay for it or be kind of involved and use your product to overcome that problem. The bigger the problem, the better for your business proposition, really. And what you do before you have a product market fit, then you test a bunch of solutions. You need to iterate really quickly, test the market, see what works, what doesn't. If it doesn't work, drop it. If it works, double down on it until you find that sweet spot, that product market fit, where you have the customers, they're buying the product, they're happy to tell others about the product. There's something there that you can then apply different, perhaps slightly, business principles of scaling that, really, be it on the tech side or on the business side, the commercial side, to get to a viable business. But before that point, and this is probably the hardest bit of all. I shouldn't say that every part of building a business is hard, but it is a critical one, and it involves a constant experimentation. It is very risky because you don't know what the results will be, and this is where you want to be, as lean as possible, really. So if I look at just quickly, kind of jumping ahead and looking how you're kind of building a product now, how does that timeline look like? If you see on the left hand side here, that's what I was talking about, the quick experimentation. There's a relatively smallish effort, small impacts, things we can test quickly, and then we drop down. If it doesn't work, then we try something else, until we find something that's kind of seems right. And this is the point here. I put a line where the product market fit is, and there is also a bit of a higher curve here, which is, I think, quite specific to kind of technical products, because you can do a lot of experimentation yourself, and build things on the back of an envelope, and use Google Sheets, use Shopify, stick a website, see whether there's some interest in, and you can do that quite quickly, quite easily. But there is a bit of technical work that you need to do to get something that's like let's say a self-serve product or an app, which isn't really that small and can be a bit bigger, a bit more expensive. And that's kind of, I marked it here as a kind of an MVP phase. which is kind of a, you experiment, and you say, okay, I think there is something here. Let's build something that kind of resembles a real product, and that's my MVP, and that's what I want to do with a launch as my first version. And then after that, you continue developing product, but now you have a bit different structure to it. You have established team. You need to, imagine at this point you already have customers. You have to take care of them. They expect the product will work. You need to give it like a bit of TLC, a bit of support, really, in addition to continuing to build a feature. So that's why this line for me is important, because you see how quickly things move here. It's all about agility, quick decision-making, trying things out, testing, then either dropping or continuing with them. While here, you have a bit more of a considered view going forward. You have to keep the certain level of service while you still kind of experiment, especially in the early stage, and then you go kind of all in. This is your product now. You kind of scale. You get your millions, hopefully, of customers and everything else, and that will just continue like that. So for this phase, I mean, in the before product market fit, what I always tell, I mean, you don't want to be hiring anyone too soon, really, and building the team. This is the team of yourself, really. This is the founding team that needs to drive this, really. Doing things yourself as much as you can. Anyone can set up a website now, a Shopify store, Patreon, or do a little integration of the Google Sheets and build something that can prove the point. I mean, there is that story about Airbnb where they kind of, the first test basically they did with their customers, whether there would be an interest in a product like this, they would kind of, offer a listing of location. You can book a bed or a spare bedroom in San Francisco, and then you would pay for it online. That was kind of a relatively new thing. And then you would enter your credit card details, and it would kind of be kind of almost automatic. But the fact of the matter is, at that point, there wasn't any payment processor in the back end. That was just a bit technically too challenging to do. It probably, would take much more time and cost to do. But what happened is that founders in the back, when they got the credit card details, they would just record it in the spreadsheet. They would go and then quickly take the payment manually using the bank's backend systems, really. So it's all kind of semi-manual, but it kind of proved the point. So this is the stage where what we are looking at, being very lean and very fast. And anyone can do that. Obviously, those that are a bit more tech savvy, there are a lot of tools that allow you to get into coding, build something, but not really code, like low code and no code. I mean, that's it's an interesting concept. I know businesses have been built on top of low code and no code that have been successful and managed to kind of grow quite a lot based on that, but doesn't work all the time and requires certain level of tech savviness, really. And finally, and probably most importantly, for probably the thing that kind of makes the biggest difference and works for early stage startups is having a technical co-founder. That is your team, really. No one else. Everybody just is committed to the vision of the product, and that's what you're building, but without really too much of a structure. Just be lean, experiment, iterate quickly, and that kind of can get you to a lot, really, proving that product market fit, making sure there is that the idea that you have has a space in the market, even though you wouldn't be really building anything, especially not kind of hiring anyone specifically to do that. And if we just go back quickly to that graph, what I've just described is this part of the experimentation here. But like I said, in technology, if you want to kind of get something out there that is a bit more self-serve and kind of usable by your customers, perhaps your little kind of, off the by hook and by crook, spreadsheet linked with your, I don't know, email or whatever, a bit of an integration in the back end and automation wouldn't maybe cut it. Because, for example, you need an app. If your product needs an app, you need to build an app. To build an app, you need skills. Then someone needs to basically build it, who is a software engineer, and it to be planned and then released to the app stores and all the rest of it. Same goes for other examples. If you need to build a bit of integration, let's say with ChatGPT, that's quite popular, or with payment processor, that's all requires a bit of skills that are technical. So you would need to bring in someone to the team. Probably, you know, ideally, you know, maybe technical co-founder can do that, but not everybody has the technical co-founder. Maybe they are also a bit part-time as well. So this is where I think there is a scope to bring in first look at the team. But what my typical suggestion is, again, before this product market fit, you don't want big commitments. It's still quite risky because this, I put it out as one, okay, let's build an MVP. But building an MVP is also a process. It might actually look more like this. Oh, I'll build my first MVP, or it didn't work. I need to build another MVP. And it all involves a bit of a technical work and skills and team to build that. And before product market fit, remember, we still don't have a, you know, predictable revenue. We probably don't have much of investment. It's probably not the right time to bring in, to try to hire people, kind of, you know, pay them salaries and kind of take a long-term commitments, because the risk is still very much on. And for that phase of before the product market fit, technical co-founder always looking at them, but then also looking at things like technical partners or outsourcing, because now you're looking at a bit of scale. So maybe it's not enough to have one developer. Maybe you need a bit of a team. Maybe you need a slightly different skills. Maybe you need someone to do a bit of cloud, maybe a bit of front-end UI, UX, and then obviously the engineering in the back end. You need to plan. I think that's different to this phase where you experiment, you just go out and try things quickly, go out there, break things. If it doesn't work, that's fine. We'll try something else. If it works, let's continue. But here you need to think, because as soon as you start needing the technical skills and technical build, all of a sudden there will be some cost involved. And you need to be quite careful managing budget, again, as an early stage startup potentially at this stage. So you need to plan and you need to execute. And you need perhaps a team of different specialities, but you don't have a capability or the budget to hire that internally. So I think, you know, along with technical co-founder, which I always highlight as a kind of really important thing, it is looking at tech partners and outsourcing. I put a question mark on the outsourcing simply because it's sometimes forgotten that, you know, if you want to build, let's say you want to build an app as an easy example, and you say, okay, I know what the app should be doing. So you write it down, and then you say, okay, this is my outsourcing team. I'll give you this. This is a specification. Bring me back my app in 3 months. If you treat it that way, what happens typically, and I've seen it many times, is what you get 3 months later will be an app, but it probably won't be what you actually wanted. And that is the tricky balance with the outsourcing and difference between finding a tech partner, because for outsourcing, you will basically find a supplier to build you something. And what you need to be aware of and be ready for is to manage that process, to be involved closely to it a lot. And that is a time-consuming job. It also a job that founder probably doesn't have time for, because they are going to be doing other bits. They're going to be, you know, chasing customers, talk to investors, stakeholders, you know, evangelize their product. That's what they should be focusing on. That's why tech partners is probably, you know, something I have seen working better. Getting people you can work with who are aligned with you and can run this tech side of things for you. So it kind of requires a bit of a trust-based relationship, and it's not easy to find. But I think this is something that, you know, for example, Startup Factory tries to do. But there are other ways to kind of partner with existing companies and try to do something kind of together. In the Startup Factory, how we kind of position that is that, you know, if we do partner, we also do kind of a part cash, part equity deal. So we are kind of aligned and have that commitment in the long run to the product. So it's not, again, trying to go away from that supplier relationship, because having that relationship might mean that both sides have a different kind of motivation to be in it, really. So you need a careful management and a lot of kind of stakeholder management in there. But either way, outsourcing can work, and also seen that working. So I wouldn't kind of disregard this. But again, like I said before, for this phase, not hiring anyone. It is finding people who can give you all the skills in the relatively short period of time, so you can get to that point of product market fit. Because until you get to that point, risk is very much on. There shouldn't be too much of a long-term commitments in terms of cash specifically. And we need to kind of have a clear targets and test things continuously and get to that point. Okay, so just quickly looking at going back to the timeline and how this kind of potentially for a product looks like. So you have been in the experimentation phase, your co-founding team, trying things out, talking to your customers, showing them some spreadsheets, doing experiments on the back of a piece of paper, and you kind of got a bit of confidence and conviction that the product will actually work. And then you build an MVP. It involves a bit of a tech skills. So you look for, a partner for 3-6 months to get this over the line. That will involve obviously some cost. So looking for people who can kind of jump in as investors as well at this stage. But again, very limited in scope, limited in time, and also long-term commitments, because we want really to get to this point. And it might take us a few iterations, and this is not an easy process, but let's assume we get there, product market fit. So how do we actually, again, going back to the topic of this webinar, hiring or building a tech team. So what we have now is we have a product and we have customers, but we now need to continue growing as a business, really. So we need to serve those customers, gain some new ones, build new features, and perhaps evolve product over time. So there are things always to consider at this point. So up until this point, before product market fit, all we wanted is to prove that the product works. So basically just get anything out there to get the key features out so we can get it in front of customers and they can build it. But now we have customers, and customers do have expectations, and the software or hardware tech products don't run themselves really. They need that TLC. Once you have a live customer, you'll need to have a support function. Be it very simple one, but there needs to be someone who can react to, what they say, so all the software has bugs. The network is always unreliable. Infrastructure is always flaky. So there'll be always something happening, hopefully not too often if it's engineered properly. But in software, you have to take that risk on and not assume, everything will be perfect, but be ready to react. And what I've seen sometimes in startups, that they go to the MVP and they say, okay, this is it. I don't need my, there's no tech team I need because this is like, the product is out there. And then all of a sudden something breaks. So the customer needs some little tweak. There's no one to do it. And then the customer gets frustrated and leaves. So having that baseline support is really important after you have that product market fit. That's why it's important at this point to have a continuous technical presence. And then you need to continue to evolve. You need to get all the product metrics from your product, see how it's used, what features are used, what aren't, what can you improve, what can you actually, maybe even ignore, what other features to build, because you will have to continuously prioritize. You're still kind of on a fairly shoestring budgets here, and you need to be careful about what you kind of spending your time and effort on. But in the end, the main goal, gain more customers, scale out, delight with new features, and make product better. So if you look at these things, that are slightly different goals for what we have before with product market fit. Before, we were just running fast to get to a certain point. And now we need to keep the lights on. We need to keep measuring the usage of our product, but also build new features. So how do we do that? What is how do we build a team to do that, really? And that's, I mean, I don't think there's a silver bullet for this or any kind of, script for it. But I think what is important in the startup world, what I said before, is, the technical marketplace is crowded. The skills are in demand. Getting the best people, superstar, is probably unrealistic. So what I always like to do, and what I've done in startups we worked before, is to look at the people with the right attitude, even though they might not have experience. Maybe young, it doesn't really young or not, but maybe not in the not superstar developers, people who can grow with the company and learn along the way. That will obviously be easier on the budget as well, probably easier to manage, but it also comes with its own kind of challenges. If you expect you can build a startup by hiring, a bunch of computer science graduates and they can just build your product further. That's just not going to happen. There needs to be some experience, but how to find that balance? It is, in my view, to having the right technical leadership so they can actually put the right culture, processes, mentoring, coaching in place, so you can actually grow the team going forward. And that, for me, is the key. And that is, again, something we have seen in the startup factory, where we would perhaps build an MVP, then hire the first developer, which will be someone who is, let's say, a graduate or a career changer, someone who is kind of driven, hungry, willing to learn, the right attitude, but maybe doesn't have all the right skills. And they sit with us and we kind of support it, mentor them, let them learn everything we do and ease them into that process. And they can then learn about the product and almost like own that product. So when it comes to that support piece, you will have someone you can trust who can carry that torch on. At the same time, having someone, a combination of kind of experience and more or less experienced people in the team, you can still drive the product forward. But I think it's also about kind of managing the expectations as well a bit, because it is not going to be probably as fast moving as it was before we had a product market fit, when we had to kind of move things really fast. So we have a bit of time to think. We have a bit of time to kind of consider what we are building. And I think it's all right to be a bit slower at this stage, because what you are gaining at the same time is you're gaining a team. You're gaining a bit of growth of the team alongside your business, and kind of, almost like living and breathing the business. You can build a bit of trust, and that's kind of definitely works in the long run. And I've seen, for some of the startups that you've seen on that first slide, that I've been a CTO and we hired some people and mentored them, and they're now a bigger team than we are, and kind of they run themselves. A lot of those early hires are still there. They're still there. So it is about kind of building a bit of kind of relationship and loyalty as well, by doing that kind of thing. As a kind of general point, when you do hire into a startup, you're always looking at the generalists typically to start with. So full stack developers in this case. I mean, I don't think you ever should be looking at very specific skills. I don't know, a specialist in, I don't know, very specific cloud stack or very specific, AI large language models, or very specifically just doing the UX, for example. What you need in a startup, and I'm sure a lot of people will appreciate that, is that everybody does everything really. I mean, roles and titles don't mean much really, and you want kind of that culture and attitude in tech. Although the tech does require specific skills, it should be a broad range of skills. There is a time to specialize. Again, this also works from the perspective of, looking at the less experienced people, team members to join the team, who probably won't be specialists in anything, and they want to kind of that exposure to everything if possible, really. So everybody can find their niche and their kind of speciality in the long run. And I'll just, reiterate this about onboarding and mentoring. I'm sure that is not the case in any kind of industry, but especially in kind of tech, and then in startup, thinking you can get someone off the street showing a bit of code and they can just carry on with that. That's typically not happening like that. So it needs to be a bit of a process of onboarding, mentoring, coaching, having someone to ask questions at any point in time, doing things together as a team. I think there's a lot to be said about, knowledge transfer, skills transfer in the technical, in the tech sector in general, when people do things together, work on similar things as things progress. So I think that is really, really important. So it's not going to be, I have a techie, they have these skills on the CV, let's bring them in, they'll do this. Never happens like that. It needs to be quite kind of high touch in a sense, but only by having the right culture and team in place. I mean, the tricky bit here is the technical leadership. So what do we say? I mean, how do I find the technical leadership as a startup? So I think this is where we should be looking at the kind of fractional roles and look back at your kind of the story I told from before, at your tech partners, because that should be a role of a tech partner as well, not only to build, but then also to mentor and grow your own team. So when you're looking at the tech partners for your MVP, for example, think about what would that mean once I start hiring my own team? Would they help me hire them, interview them? Would they help me bring them up to speed? And that's what we, are quite passionate about doing at the Startup Factory, because that's what makes a business. People make business. You can see some of these pictures as well. This one is actually real from one of our startups. And it's a combination of a Startup Factory team and the founding team and a few other people as well. So it is kind of, everybody who is kind of working on it together, making that a proper team effort. So that's about it. The key takeaways, I mean, I just listed them here. I won't read them out, but, technology is tricky. It is tricky to navigate. It's not a rocket science. I've been doing it for a long time, and everything is possible as well. So it's good to have that attitude about technology, but it's also, can be a bit of a black box sometimes, because it does require some specific skills, some very strange looking code on your screen that make your, I don't know, app do something, or your pixels on the screen move in a certain way. It is interesting, it's exciting, it is a specific set of skills, but not unsurmountable for anyone really. So it is about understanding technology. I think in order to build successful teams, especially for businesses that look at the tech products, which is a lot of companies are, everyone, as I said at the beginning, is kind of tech enabled. It's that understanding of the tech. And then looking at the team before product market fit is in place, probably not the best idea looking at, permanent hires or anything like that. You need to be lean, very lean, and very quick, and iterate things and do things yourself. I know a lot of founders are used to that. You do everything. So being a founder is probably the hardest job. But then also looking at people to help you who are kind of aligned with you, be it a technical co-founder, be it a tech partner, or perhaps outsource it if there is a bit of, investment or cash around as well. Post MVP, the mindset needs to shift a bit. The tech doesn't run itself. It needs that support. So that's why it's really important to look to hire someone, even at a very kind of junior level early on. So to have that someone who can take care of your customers and make sure that the product is perceived in the best possible way. And that same person can also grow to become your kind of, lead engineer, maybe CTO in the future as well. But having someone to support them is really important. Don't expect hiring, relatively cheap, less experienced developers, and then, thinking for yourself, oh, they're not doing enough really because they don't have enough of a support. So having that sort of technical leadership is important, but that is going to be expensive. So that's why I look at the fractional aspect of that. Okay, so that's me. There is an email here you can use. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me on this email, LinkedIn. I also run a group called the Pragmatic CTO. There's some posts on LinkedIn. There's a little Slack channel which I can add you if you are interested in that as well. Who is looking at that group is looking at people who are kind of looking to become technical leaders really, but might not be that at that stage, specifically targeted usually at startups as well. So thank you very much for your time today.